If you ask a room full of people what it takes to achieve financial security, most will give you the same answer: a higher salary. But the data tells a different story. According to recent surveys, 40% of people earning over $300,000 a year are living paycheck to paycheck. Among attending physicians, that number climbs to 57%. We tend to view poverty as a simple math equation. If the cost of housing and food exceeds an hourly wage, the bank account drains. By that logic, the top 5% of earners should be insulated from financial stress, as they have more than enough cash flow to cover the basics. Yet the struggle persists. Behavioral economists call this the accumulation paradox. It turns out that a person's capacity to build wealth does not increase at the same rate as their income. When high earners reach that six-figure threshold, they often trigger a set of cognitive traps. Sudden wealth, like a promotion or an attending salary, reprograms how the brain evaluates necessity, making luxuries feel like requirements. A massive paycheck does not cure poor money management. Without intervention, a higher income simply provides a larger stage for existing psychological flaws. Building a high-income career requires intense delayed gratification. Doctors and lawyers spend a decade or more in training, constantly suppressing their immediate wants for a future payoff. They stretch their self-restraint as far as it will go, and eventually the tension breaks. When that massive first paycheck finally clears, a cognitive bias known as hyperbolic discounting takes over, also known as present bias. This is a neurological glitch where the brain devalues future security when placed side by side with immediate rewards. Given the choice between fully funding a 401k for retirement 30 years away or booking a luxury vacation to Italy today, the brain chooses the immediate dopamine hit. While this often resembles a simple lack of financial literacy, it functions as a neurological overcorrection. After years of deprivation, the brain prioritizes the dopamine of the now over the abstract safety of the later. In the 18th century, the philosopher Denis Diderot lived a quiet life in poverty until he acquired a beautiful, expensive scarlet rope. Suddenly, his old desk, his worn chairs, and his simple rug looked inadequate next to his luxurious new garment. He began replacing everything he owned to match the elegance of the rope. Anthropologists refer to this as a Diderot unity. Consumer goods don't exist in isolation. They exist in culturally linked clusters that define a specific social identity or aesthetic. This flowchart maps exactly how that centuries-old concept impacts modern professionals. Buying a new, expensive house in a high-status neighborhood acts as the scarlet robe. That single purchase triggers the acquisition of a new, appropriately styled couch. The couch prompts the purchase of a new rug, which demands a landscaping service, and suddenly the baseline cost of living has skyrocketed. The cycle accelerates with every raise. As income climbs, earners find themselves in a continuous sequence of upgrading possessions to stay consistent with their peer group's aesthetic. High earners rarely go broke from one massive catastrophic purchase. Their wealth is slowly drained by the mandatory ecosystem of expenses required to maintain their new socioeconomic status. A typical workday for a high-income professional is a relentless gauntlet of high-stakes problem-solving. They spend 8 to 12 hours negotiating contracts, diagnosing patients, and managing complex teams. All of that work draws from a finite pool of energy in the prefrontal cortex. The human brain uses the same cognitive resource to execute professional duties at work and to maintain personal self-control at home. This shared tank leads to a state called ego depletion. By the end of the day, with executive resources drained, the brain acts as a cognitive miser. It defaults to System 1 thinking, bypassing complex trade-offs like the impact of impulse spending in favor of high-convenience, low-effort rewards like expensive takeout. The cognitive effort required to earn a six-figure paycheck can deplete the mental discipline required to save it. Exhaustion and impulse control aren't the only factors. High earners also routinely fall victim to mental accounting, a behavioral bias where people categorize identical sums of money into different buckets based solely on where the cash came from. This visualization compares a classic mental accounting error. A professional might keep $50,000 in a liquid savings account earning 2%, while simultaneously carrying $20,000 in credit card debt at 20% interest. Mathematically, they are losing money, but they often refuse to pay off the debt because they have labeled the savings account as "do not touch." The same glitch applies to variable income. A $10,000 bonus is categorized as fun money. Rather than paying down debt, the earner spends it instantly due to the emotional label attached to a windfall. By treating money differently based on its source, high earners can become blind to the actual math of their net worth. Wealth leaks out of their accounts undetected, hidden behind arbitrary mental labels. Because these biases are neurologically hardwired, relying on willpower alone creates a high risk of failure. Living below your means is extremely difficult when your own biology is constantly nudging you toward immediate consumption. This diagram models the first necessary system, beating present bias. The moment a raise or bonus clears, a percentage must be automatically routed into investment accounts before it ever becomes visible in a checking account. If the brain can't see the money, it is much harder to spend it. Next, to counter ego depletion, implement a 30-day rule for non-essential purchases. This acts as a mandatory time lock, giving your exhausted prefrontal cortex a chance to recharge and evaluate the purchase outside the fog of decision fatigue. Finally, to defeat the Diderot Effect, place a firewall around your core expenses. Isolate your housing and transportation costs and prevent them from upgrading automatically just because your income increased. Financial independence is not achieved the day you hit a specific salary number. It is achieved on the day you finally build the discipline to stop your lifestyle goalposts from moving. True wealth is invisible. It isn't measured by the size of your paycheck, but rather by the behavioral systems you build to protect your income from the vulnerabilities of human nature.